You're watching Apocalypse and the End Times. My name is Paul McGuire, and we're going to continue our interview with Anthony Patch, researcher, author, speaker, author of novels such as Covert Catastrophe, Diamonds in the Rough, and he has spent over 25 years researching science and physics and cosmology and the Cern collider and related technologies and sciences. And what he has to share with you is essential for you to understand, because it's not theoretical. The research he has, it's ongoing. So I want to dive right back into this interview with Anthony and continue on talking about the Cern collider and its real agenda. Okay, so we're on the verge of a paradigm shift. Yep. They've cracked open a portal or doorway or whatever you want to call it from another dimension. By their own admission, they are already in communication with something that has a personality and has ability to communicate. Yep. And the information that they're receiving must be very high-level information, because they're feeding it to laboratories and technologies all across the planet. And what you said, which is so sobering, that video on the internet that captured it was an open satanic worship ceremony, I guess in the Goddard Tunnel.
Yes.
And I saw it and I was like, my mouth hung open, because it was so in your face, Luciferian and satanic.
I would say we've probably not seen something that bold in the mainstream media.
No, we haven't.
In our lifetime.
No. And you know, there's been an escalation, and it keeps getting faster and more bold and more prominent. The Illuminati symbols at the Super Bowls and these giant musical performances in stadiums by music superstars and the Olympics. There are in-your-face occult messages and satanic messages and symbols, which tells you there's a very powerful Luciferian elite in this world, very active, and they're not hiding anymore.
No, they're not.
They've come out.
Because they've progressed in their timeline to the point where they feel invulnerable and no longer have to hold back. In fact, they want to be more bold about it so that they can gather themselves more converts to their way.
That would make sense.
Pull away from us.
Yeah, that would make sense, because here in the U.S. we have this rise in the satanic churches.
Exactly.
Just openly recruiting, evangelizing, which wouldn't have occurred even 5 or 6 years ago.
That's correct.
Now, you talk about a number of things, and first question, though, I want to ask you, and feel free to be as delicate as you choose or whatever, but we're talking about how the information distributed to the scientists and others is compartmentalized. Yes. So you talk to many of these scientists, and I've talked to some of these scientists, and they have no clue as to what you're talking about.
That's correct.
And it was obvious to me talking to some of them is that they only have compartmentalized information. Now, you and I would agree that it's kind of Lucifer's organizational structure is pyramidical.
Absolutely.
With Lucifer on top, and then it's on a need-to-know basis, kind of like a corporation.
Sure.
Where Lucifer is the CEO, the founder, the chairman of the board.
Sure.
So at the highest level, and we know this from reading the documents behind the founding of the United Nations and so many other organizations, you know, these people were disciples of Madame Blavatsky, who openly promoted the worship of Satan.
Absolutely.
So who would you say, is there an organization or is it a group of secret individuals? Who would you say is running this thing, driving it on a human level? And who is ultimately, I know they're using lower level sources to
Sure.
Who's financing this?
Right out of the Vatican.
Right out of the Vatican. That
If you need to put a figurehead to that, we can call it the Pope, but he's a figurehead much like any president or dictator.
Right.
But he is the figurehead for the structure. The Vatican finances and creates the governmental controls for the entire world. It doesn't matter the culture or the government. Everybody in lockstep takes their orders from the Vatican. If you were to look at our legal systems, no matter the country, they all derive from the legal system that is put forth by the Vatican. Now they have their minions that are sprinkled out and infiltrated into many organizations like the Illuminati, but the short answer is the Vatican. They worship Saturn, the black sun. If you look at and look for images of Saturn in the clothing, in the adornments, in the temples, you will see representations of Saturn everywhere. This is the satanic worship of their false sun, their false god, Saturn. That is where they derive their energy from that worship of their false god, Saturn. Now that sounds absurd. Most people would never put Saturn and the Vatican together. But it's easy enough to see. It isn't that occulted. Mm-hmm. And therefore, who's running CERN, who's pushing the agenda, comes right out of the Vatican.
But at the same time, outside of the organizational structure and hierarchy of the Vatican, there are many Catholics like the late Malachi Martin and others another guy who they say committed suicide, but by hanging himself, but that was very doubtful.
Right.
Malachi Martin, a Catholic, and I believe he was a Jesuit.
Yep.
Warned as a Catholic apologist, he warned of the incense of Satan penetrating the Vatican. And what he was saying, as you know, is that he was alluding. It was his thesis, Malachi Martin, that Satanism had penetrated the Vatican.
It reached an epoch.
Right. So you're not saying all Catholics are...
Certainly not.
Right, okay.
But we're talking about, if you will, a governmental structure.
Right.
A political, a theological structure. We're not attacking people.
Right.
But we're looking at the structure that was assembled and promulgated by Satan himself and the direct, in-your-face worship of Lucifer by that hierarchy in that structure.
Okay, it's interesting to me because I get emails from everybody, and then you have one segment saying it's the Jews who are responsible for all the evils in the world, and the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and then some say it's the Vatican, and there's this whirl of confusion. I don't want to totally get into that, but it is interesting though that the Vatican has had a number of spokesmen, and I believe the current Pope recently made a statement, and tell me if you know the statement, alluding to the fact of some kind of extraterrestrial alien visitation. Tell our viewers about that.
Well, he's come right out. The short response is that he said that should we be visited or discover or communicate with, quote, aliens, which is a broad stroke term in itself, he would welcome the opportunity, and I'm paraphrasing, to baptize another form of life, aliens. Where is that in the Bible?
Right.
That's my challenge to him.
And there's been a number. I mean, they have as I understand it, some kind of Vatican ambassador. That's not probably the right word. Program for ETs.
Sure, and the UN. We have a UN spokesperson for the visitation by aliens, that person, I forget her name at the moment, but she is our world representative. Take me to your leader scenario.
And then we have a number, and there's been prominent discussions among a whole series of presidents in the last 20 years where this
agenda, this scenario is played out. Ronald Reagan.
Right, yeah, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan would be one, and Clinton, and Obama, and a lot of them. Sure. So
those are hints. Those are tantalizing to the masses.
Okay, little hints. Yeah. So what do you tie that into the Cern collider, and tell us where you think this agenda is going.
Well, I think we've addressed it to the extent of opening the portal to communicate. Let's talk about maybe someone else that everyone will recognize.
Sure.
That's Dr. Stephen Hawking, one of the most renowned particle physicists in the world, a mathematician. He made the statement, I'll paraphrase, but he said, we're addressing the agenda, the purpose of CERN. He said, you do not want to open this interdimensional gateway because you don't know what's going to come through.
So would he have been? Would you call him a critic of the program?
I would, in the sense of their goal of disturbing the fabric of space.
Right.
Because he said that if we are able to tear the veil, to go to the Hadron, the God particle, I'm sorry, I'm losing the track. The God particle being a hadron, being a particle that they were trying to achieve the discovery of through the collision of particles. He said that...
Is that particle called the Hadron?
Well, that it is a particle, the God particle. I'm losing my train of thought there for a moment.
Let's just suspend that for a moment.
Yeah, Higgs boson. Sorry, got a lot swirling in the head.
So
the Higgs boson...
Oh, yes, right.
They allegedly discovered this in the latter part of 2012 and into 2013. He said that if you disturb the Higgs field, which is part of this Higgs boson scenario, you could disturb that enough that you would create vacuums, a vacuum bubble that would envelop at the speed of light, not only this planet, but in the entire universe. Now, this is coming from an eminent scientist, mainstream scientist who's saying this.
Who's an atheist.
He's an atheist.
Right.
Now, that hasn't happened and hasn't played out yet since the discovery of the Higgs boson, and I apologize for the lapse, but what he is addressing is this rift, this opening of this portal, this interdimensional gateway, because he recognizes that there are entities on the other side that should not be in our realm, that barrier needs to be maintained.
Wait. Stephen Hawking recognizes that there are entities?
Yes.
And did he use the word entities or a similar word?
He uses unknown energies.
Unknown energies.
Right.
But he's referring to entities.
In our parlance.
Okay, in our parlance. So he's concerned about unwanted visitors, a home invasion, if you will, from another dimension by entities.
That's correct. He's not the only one that's raised that issue.
Okay.
Not necessarily vacuum bubbles, but this communication and this opening. So there are enough atheist-oriented scientists out there who've been suppressed, but you can find their statements on the internet. This isn't conspiracy theorist origin. These are mainstream people who are saying, we really shouldn't do this. In fact, the director said,
the director of the Hadron Collider program.
Of the Large Hadron Collider, as I said earlier, said, we don't really know what's going to happen when we open this portal, but we're going to try anyway. We're going to do it anyway. I'm paraphrasing. It's much like when the first atomic bomb was tested at Trinity.
Yes.
And Oppenheimer's famous statement, I've become God. I've become death, not God, but I've become death. Predating that were the concerns of the scientists at Los Alamos, worried that they would ignite the atmosphere when they detonated the first bomb. So they weren't sure. Now, you can transplant that to the present time. We have the same scenario.
And as you know, because we discussed it earlier, Dr. Robert Oppenheimer, I guess the father of the Manhattan Project, that decision was made at the Bohemian Grove.
Yes.
Heavily occultic society near San Francisco. The same statue of the same Hindu god, Shiva, the destroyer of worlds, was there during the Manhattan Project.
Yes.
And he knew that they were going to crack open something.
Yeah. He's a practicing Hindu. He was a
practicing
Hindu.
Okay. And now here we fast forward to the Hadron Collider. And as you said, and I've seen the picture, and if you're a doubter, you can see the picture. It's everywhere. That same Hindu god, she's doing this weird dance, I believe it's Shiva.
It is Shiva, the god of destroyer, and then the leveling of the playing field, the wiping clean of the slate,
Right.
and then the rebirthing. That's
Right.
the three-step process that she's a duality,
That's right,
represents,
right.
and that speaks to the movement of transhumanism we see today.
Right.
But also the geometry of the statue is replicated in the machine itself in the form of the geometric configuration of the detectors that are analyzing the particles when they collide.
Wow.
So the geometry is there, which speaks to sacred geometry and numerology that's employed here as well.
This deception and what is happening with the collider, you talk about the golden age of Chronos. Just tell our viewers what the golden age of Chronos is.
Well, this is their belief system. This is what is driving this agenda. There's this myth, if you will, that prior to the configuration of our solar system, our planetary alignments and pathways, that Saturn, Earth, and Mars were conjoined. They were enveloped in a plasma envelope, and this is part of the electric universe.
Right.
In a plasma
it's part of
universe,
the electric universe and define electric universe to our viewers.
Well, there's a gravity model of the universe which we can assign to Einstein as a figurehead, and there's an electric model that we can assign a figurehead of Tesla to.
Yes, Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, thank you. Who, by the way, in Colorado Springs was his laboratory.
Right. We're right here.
We're in the home of Tesla, so it's perfect that we're talking about this.
Wow.
Tesla understood that the mechanisms of the universe were electromagnetic. We're talking about electricity, we're talking about magnetism, we're talking about ionized gas filling the void of space, which is the ether that he spoke of, exactly, what we would call plasma today in the laboratory. That's what fills the universe. And so comprised or contained in the plasma are electric fields and lines of magnetic force. This is what holds everything in alignment in terms of the planetary orbits. But specifically, the golden age of Chronos was a time when Saturn, Earth, and Mars traveled together towards the solar system, and then not gravitationally, but through magnetism, electromagnetic attraction, those three planets, our own included, were drawn into close proximity of the sun. There was massive electrical discharges that took place that disrupted this plasma envelope, that disrupted this conjoining and alignment of the three planets. But prior to that discharge taking place and disruption, the three came together, the other planets and the sun that we know, and there were human beings that observed in the heavens plasma discharges taking place and the three planets in alignment above the Earth, stair-stepped up, and connected by electrical discharges, plasma discharges called Birkeland currents. Now, this is replicated in the Bible and described as Jacob's ladder, this Birkeland current connecting electrically all of the planets, including these two, Mars and Saturn, but also Venus was part of this new alignment. This is all replicated and inscribed in stone, in caves and in pyramids of diverse cultures who allegedly had no form of communication between them across the planet, but you see the exact same hieroglyphs and inscriptions depicting and recording what they see in the atmosphere, in the heavens, the planetary alignments, and these electrical discharges. So that is the foundation for the theory that the universe is electromagnetic, more specifically, as opposed to gravity. Gravity is 10 to the 39th power, weaker than electromagnetism.
What you're saying is mind-blowing, fascinating, but you're not. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's not speculation on your part. It's based on research.
That's correct.
And I had the opportunity to converse about some of these things with one of the leading Satanists in the world.
Really?
Who, I want to be delicate about what I say, but a very high-level scientist as well. Okay. And we had kind of an intellectual discussion. Brilliant man. And he would agree with probably most of what you said. And he said to me, the problem I have with Christians is that they don't discuss prehistory. But,
There you go.
But you just talked about prehistory.
That's correct.
Now,
Now, let me underscore real quick.
Yeah.
Not my belief, their belief. And I assign it to the world of mythology.
Okay.
I don't find this in Scripture.
Okay.
But we do see their practice of their worship of the black sun.
Yes.
You mentioned the Nazis sort of offhand there.
The Vril force.
Exactly, the Vril society. So
Right.
when we look at the hidden agenda, we have to look at Saturn and the worship of Saturn, again, the Vatican, but we can put it to the science now. And they believe that with the Large Hadron Collider, they can reconnect electrically in a more profound fashion than exists electrically now with Saturn. All the planets, everything communicates electrically already in the electric model of the universe. But they want to establish a profound plasma conduit, I call it,
A plasma conduit, okay.
between Earth and Saturn, because they believe they can tap into both spiritual and physical energy from
Right.
that planet for their use here on this planet, and
From
it all
Saturn.
plays in Saturn.
Right. So,
Yeah.
you have so much important information that our viewers have, and we're going to do another interview with you because you just have too much information that people need to understand.
Sure.
This is not esoteric stuff. This is the new normal.
Correct.
You know.
It is.
Anybody goes to the movies, the kids are saturated with this.
Yep.
Stanley Kubrick, as you know, was secretly trying to communicate this stuff about the Saturn satanic cult in his films, especially 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Absolutely.
That was a reference to the planet Saturn.
Yes.
And these black obelisks and alchemical magic, and he was involved in you know, I don't know if you can say good Freemasons, bad Freemasons, but he was obviously involved in some kind of occultic belief system.
Yes.
But he was very much opposed to this Saturn death cult, as he
Correct.
called it, and he tried to communicate it through symbols and language in his movies.
Yes, he did.
I've done a lot of research in similar areas to you, and I want to pick this up on the next program. I don't know what your feeling on it is, but I am convinced that the Tower of Babel was an astrological tableau where they observed the host of heaven looking for the stuff that you're talking about.
Yep.
But I'm also convinced that the Tower of Babel was an interdimensional stargate or portal which allowed for the entrance of interdimensional beings.
Totally agree with you.
And so when I read your research, preparing for the program a number of weeks ago, I was like, not delighted that this was happening, but it was like,
It was a confirmation.
yes, it's like, oh, here's a man who's done research in this area, and he's coming to this conclusion. So, I mean, this may sound like science fiction to you, but it's not science fiction. It would have sounded like science fiction to have a cell phone and an automobile and a jet 200 years ago.
Sure.
But the world changed. It's now normal. The world is changing right now, and as Anthony said, we are going through the most radical change in the history of civilization. And in your lifetime, should the Lord tarry,
Yep.
we will be in this world that you're talking about, and we will be dealing with these realities. So you need to be equipped. And if you're a skeptic, great. Do your homework.
Please do.
Send this show, Apocalypse and the End Times, to your friends, because intelligent people with open minds, they want to know, they want something of substance. And that's a great method of evangelism. So again, I want to thank you, Anthony, for a mind-blowing interview. And we're going to be back with Anthony Patch in the next Apocalypse and the End Times. I'm Paul McGuire. God bless you. And remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.